Throughout California, registered nurses are organizing for themselves, for their patients, and for a voice in healthcare. This is the story of one hospital and one group of nurses.
Generally at Long Beach Memorial, excellence, high quality in patient care was a priority.
Long respected throughout the healthcare industry, Long Beach Memorial is the second largest hospital on the West Coast. But with the arrival of corporate-driven medicine in the 1990s, Memorial, like many hospitals, found itself more and more concerned with the bottom line.
It always seemed that nursing, somehow in nursing, maybe because of salaries, whatever reason, that was one area they kept cutting. Cut back on your, salaries, cut back on your benefits, cut back on this, cut back on the patient ratio.
When we had 1 to 6, we had nurses coming in who were so stressed. Just looking at the board, they would start to cry before you ever even got assignment, because you knew what your day was going to be like. You weren't going to get your breaks. You'd be lucky if you even got to eat your lunch.
One of the largest problems was the disparity in pay. They were bringing in newer nurses at salaries that were higher than nurses that had been there, 10, 12 years.
New nurses, brand new graduates, would come in making more money than I was as an RN for 12 years, 15 years. And I would be the one that would be teaching them, orientating them. Of course, at work, it's like, okay, I'll do the best I can to orientate this nurse. We're talking about, the patient, the family. But at the same time, I'm sorry, but, deep inside, you couldn't help but feel something's not fair here. This isn't right.
The lack of a voice and the lack of any control over our practice was a big issue. We would voice our concerns, but nobody was listening.
When they make you feel that your input is not recognized and it's not important, then nurses just leave because they are unhappy.
We thought, well, okay, so you can change department, go into another type of nursing. Then we kept saying, but you know what, the management style's the same, the bottom line, is this and that. So then it's like, well, what about the union?
Well, there were a lot of anxieties among the nurses and fears and, uncertainties, because we have never had experienced union before.
We had a lot of young nurses, me included, who didn't have the information and needed to go looking for it.
If we unionize, are we really going to be able to get what we wanted? Are the managers going to be retaliatory with us? Are we really going to get the patients ratio that we've been fighting for in the past?
The Memorial RNs turned for representation to the California Nurses Association.
CNA, it's a professional nurses union, so I think that was a big draw to a lot of the nurses, rather than to have other organizations or other unions. This is all nurses and ran by nurses.
They all seemed to have the general principle of what nursing was about and how nursing should be treated and how we should be looking at the patients before we look at anything else.
And we had heard about a lot of the things that they were doing, that they were very progressive in trying to improve healthcare overall.
CNA represents more than 50,000 registered nurses in 150 facilities in California, despite fierce opposition from hospital administrators everywhere.
The hospital will do anything not to have the nurses get organized, have a voice, and be united. And they will hire anybody, they will pay any amount of money.
Memorial spent millions of dollars on the Burke Group, a self-described union avoidance consulting firm.
The Burke Group did some pretty despicable things. They were intimidating and coercing nurses. They were pulling nurses in the office with the manager and doing one-on-one talking.
They hired one Filipino union buster, and he wants to call all these Filipino nurses because, they speak the language. So he's trying to convince me to convince the others to vote against the union.
They had signs at our front desk. I've been there 15 years. I have never seen a sign at the front desk that said picture ID necessary to enter the hospital. They had guard dogs that they walked around with security. That in itself was pretty scary for a lot of nurses. Managers called people at home 2 and 3 times. They sent letters. They cried to the nurses saying, I'll lose my job if you vote yes. I won't have a job. You'll never be able to talk to me again. You won't get your schedule anymore. You'll start at the beginning. You'll lose all your benefits. You'll lose your pension. I mean, just an array of things that were all They were found to be false.
Why does the hospital care if nurses organize? I mean, we're paying the dues, we're doing the work, so why do they care? Because we would have a voice and we would have some say in our workplace, and they want absolute control and power.
They brought on board a pharmacist, Byron Swigert, and he's probably been there 25, 30 years, and they made him the CEO. And he had these meetings.
They didn't say mandatory, but they strongly encouraged nurses to attend these meetings with our head CEO. And they were like about an hour long, and they wanted to hear, what are your concerns? What are your issues? What can we do?
All I need is 1 year. Just give me 1 year, and I will fix it. If I don't have it fixed in 1 year, I'll be the person to call back the union. I will. This is what he said in the meetings.
What I'm asking the nurses to do is to vote no. Give me and the management team 1 year to work closely with them to try and make things better.
A lot of promises that give him a year and things will be changed and things will be done.
It sounded very convincing. And I was one of them that I agreed. So when it came to the first union vote, as difficult as it was, I ended up not voting for the union.
More than 1,100 RNs voted. The union lost by 10 votes.
Quite a few nurses were in tears and very distraught because we had worked so hard and so long towards this.
They did give us a small pay increase. And they said, okay, we're trying to work with the issues. We listened to you. The nurses, you made your decision. We will keep in mind, the issues you presented to us.
The hospital administration and hospitals throughout the country count on the fact that nurses are caring people. Nurses will put themselves last when it comes to taking their breaks, taking their lunches, and they count on that. So for us to organize, a lot of nurses had to realize you always put everybody first. At some point, you need to put yourself first. You need to take care of yourself.
We went from a 1 to 4 to automatically starting out 1 nurse to 6 patients. And we weren't involved in the decision. We were told what the decision was on a Friday night. We then started to get just the pediatric nurses involved. There was about 80 of us. And we called a meeting for the managers. And we went in and told them that we would no longer accept it, that we gave them their year and that this wasn't working for us. And it was about that time that CNA came back in for the second run.
We continued to meet and we continued to organize, and we gathered our gumption back together and went back to work and held our heads high, and we continued to organize, and the rest is history. We did it the second time.
Winning the second vote, oh my gosh, talk about something being lifted off your shoulders. You knew that no longer were you going to be stepped on in a doormat.
Just the fact that there is a union makes you feel like you can speak up, you can say what you think is good for your patient, you can be an excellent patient advocate.
Nurses used to complain about, I can't take another patient, I'm really busy, and yet the manager would give them another patient. Well, now you have nurses that are saying, no, I cannot safely take another patient, because they know they don't stand alone anymore. A lot of nurses had this thing, and it was pumped in by Memorial, that this outside party was going to come in and make all the decisions for you and tell you what to do, and that's totally false. That's not the way it is.
It is a nurses' union. It is not just a union that comes in. They relinquish the reins to us.
We make the decision. We sit at the bargaining table. We make the priorities of what the issues are for nurses.
The RNs, after some hard negotiations, won a milestone contract which included patient staffing decisions with an RN input classification system, mandatory overtime banned except in cases of emergency. Wages and benefits increased by up to 48% over 3 years, with increased pay for RN experience anywhere. And a guaranteed employer contribution pension plan based on years of service, one of the best plans in the region.
We ratified our contract the day before Cedars-Sinai was going to vote for their election.
The Cedars-Sinai nurses had been following what was happening at Memorial. They knew that we were in bargaining.
The Union Buster group, the same group that had been at our hospital, was at Cedars trying to get them not to vote, and using us as an example of how weak the union was.
So when we did ratify our contract, they saw our contract, and they saw the salaries we got, they saw the pension plan that we got, they saw the improvements that we gained through our bargaining, through our collective effort and staying united. They saw the improvements, and I believe that that probably helped get them over the edge so that they did win their vote also.
Most of the nurses are good ambassadors for Memorial now. We're in everywhere we go. It's like, come work at Memorial.
Since all of this has started, I think I've received more respect because now they know who I am. California Nurses Association has given us the ability to speak for ourselves.
As we continue to organize and continue to unite, we can help bring about a standard of nursing throughout all of California.